My name is Wesley Harmon, and I am 32 years old, residing in the small town of Riverton, California. I work as a software developer at a tech company that at one point felt like a family. However, things have changed, and not for the better. My days have become a cycle of frustration, watching a colleague attempt to turn our once vibrant workplace into her personal playground. Her name is Tanya. Tanya is absolutely brilliant in terms of programming, but she has developed a dreadful habit of slacking off. Day after day, I would stroll by her office, only to find her hunched over her keyboard, but not in the manner one would expect from a dedicated programmer. Instead, she would be completely absorbed in games of solitaire, or sometimes I would catch her taking a nap with her door shut. It was infuriating. I began to question my own work ethic as I toiled tirelessly, while she lazed about, seemingly with no care in the world. It was as if she had found the cheat codes to life, while I was left struggling with the daily grind. The resentment simmered beneath the surface, growing exponentially as the days rolled on. I despised the way she smiled as she swiped and clicked, oblivious to the fact that we were part of a team and we were supposed to rely on each other. Instead of a helping hand, she was like an anchor dragging us down. I knew I had to solve this problem, but what could I possibly do to make a difference? How could I shake her from this rut she had sunk into, or better yet, how could I make her feel the consequences of her actions? And then it hit me. There came an opportunity when I found myself in my office one quiet afternoon. Just like any other day, I was working on my code, but my mind wandered back to Tanya and her incessant goofing off. That is when I devised a plan. Not just any plan, but a calculated revenge. I took her favorite game, solitaire, and flipped it on its head. My first step was to open the solitaire executable file using a hexadecimal editor. As I explored the code, I could not help but crack a grin. I blanked out a segment right in the middle of the code, which would ultimately lead to chaos when she tried to play it. With a devious excitement, I set the clock on my computer to an earlier date. I saved the altered file, so it matched the date and time of her other installed Windows files. The big moment came when I watched her intently as she loaded the game onto her computer, thinking she was about to indulge in her usual pastime. The perfect crime, or so I believed. However, as the days went by, I quickly realized that my scheme spiraled out of control. Tanya managed to twist the chaos into a conundrum of her own. She played the victim, manipulating our boss, who was frantically trying to figure out why her computer repeatedly crashed. Tanya would refuse to admit that it was her constant attempts to launch the solitaire game that caused the breakdown, allowing her to escape culpability. Poor Eric, our supervisor, was caught in a labyrinth of confusion and frustration. Day after day, he would appear at my desk, perplexed and concerned, asking if I could help her. I felt a blend of guilt and amusement, knowing that I was unintentionally causing chaos at work, tainting my once harmonious environment. The situation escalated with Tanya refusing to admit her involvement, and I began to feel like a coward hiding in the shadows. What was supposed to be a clever little jab at her laziness turned into something much larger and more complex. I had hoped for a simple consequence to teach her that every action has a reaction, but now I felt like I had unleashed something dangerous. Eric became increasingly desperate to find a solution, pulling in the IT team for analysis, and my heart sank as I considered the ramifications of what I had done. I was spiraling downward into an abyss of anxiety, and I didn't know how to pull myself back up. The weight of my actions was heavy on my conscience. I felt as if I had painted myself into a corner, and there seemed to be no way out. Days turned into weeks, and the tension in our office mounted. I began to think of ways to fix this mess without exposing myself. Perhaps I could simply tell Eric the truth or confront Tanya to see if we could find a common ground. But each time, my fear held me back. It felt unbearable. I watched from the sidelines as the drama unfolded, and I could not shake the feeling that I was trapped by my own creation. This was my low point, realizing the complexity of workplace dynamics and getting sucked into a cycle of retaliation that might never end. Just when it seemed I was lost in my web of deceit, I made a final decision. I had to take a monumental leap of faith and confront Tanya directly. I was gripped by a sense of dread as I made my way to her office. As I approached, I gathered every ounce of courage within me. I knocked on the door hesitantly and entered to find her staring at her screen. It felt electrifying, as if we were charged with a silent understanding of what had been going on. I took a deep breath and said, "Tanya, we need to talk." Our conversation was tense at first, but through our dialogue, I discovered an unexpected side of her. She had been struggling to keep up, feeling overwhelmed and inadequate. Her behavior stemmed from her insecurities rather than a desire to be lazy. Our work had been piling up, and she felt too embarrassed to admit that she was drowning. We reached a tumultuous yet cathartic conclusion. I shared my version of events and the scheme I had executed, and to my surprise, she laughed. It was an odd reaction, breaking the tension. We worked together to come up with a plan to not only improve our productivity, but also to support each other in overcoming our challenges. That unexpected turn made me realize that sometimes revenge could lead to unexpected connections and empathy. As we worked together as a team, our dynamic shifted. Suddenly, our office felt vibrant again. We realized that collaboration could not only bring us success in our projects, but also in creating a supportive workplace where each of us could thrive. Looking back at that chaotic time, I learned that while revenge felt momentarily satisfying, it was the act of confronting challenges head-on and human connection that truly brought fulfillment. Now we usher in a new normal at work, with a much stronger bond between us, and I would not trade it for anything. The twist of irony was the way my revenge eventually turned into reconciliation, and I learned far more about myself in the process.